The Mud Kitchen. It's an overwhelming success with little kids everywhere. I made one last year and we put it in the Millbridge Commons Health and Wellness Park, and it was just an overwhelming success, and the kids are all over it, playing with it every time, having such a good time. Well, we're making two of them now this year, and one is going to be auctioned off in a silent auction. The other one's going to be part of a raffle at the annual Millbridge Days celebration coming up the end of the month. I'm going to show you how I made these, and there are also plans available if you want to build one yourself. Now I'm going to show you how I made these two. So let's get started. Many of you that follow my channel know that I'm a regular volunteer for an organization called WHRL, which stands for Women for Healthy Rural Living, here in Millbridge, Maine. And they are the ones who put in the downtown park called Millbridge Commons Health and Wellness Park. They put in the incredible edible gardens around Millbridge where people can pick their own vegetables for free. A number of other programs for seniors and women and kids and all kinds of stuff. So they're very active in our community. And last year I called it a kids playground kitchen or something like that, and I made a video and I posted it, and I'll put the link to that video in the description below. What I'm doing now though is I'm building a couple more. The one I made last year, I didn't build exactly to my drawing. I varied quite a bit from it because at the last minute there were some changes made by the women at WHRL. They had other ideas this year, and so these two that I'm building are going to be closer to the drawing. Now the reason I'm building these is because that original one I built really went over quite well. It went into the Millbridge Commons Health and Wellness Park, and the kiddos just went wild over it. And you know, when it's out there, the kids ignore the playground, brand new playground that was put in, and they just run over to that kitchen and play with it, and they just spend hours on it. And it's just one of the most popular things ever. And so we decided we'll build a couple more of these, but they're not going to go in the park. Every year, WHRL has a fundraiser to help promote its programs and fund its programs. And they hold it every year on a celebration in town we call Millbridge Days. And we have a parade, and they have all kinds of things going on. And WHRL, their office is right on Main Street, and they usually hold a fundraising raffle. There's usually multiple items up for raffle. People can buy tickets and put them in little bags for each thing they want to put a raffle ticket on. And they also have a silent auction. Well, the problem with the silent auction is that limits the possibility of getting one of these. Only the people that have the most money are the ones that are going to be able to afford to buy it. They outbid each other. And people that might have lesser incomes that can't afford to bid that high, well, to give them another chance, we'll take one of these, put it in a silent auction. The other one is going to go into a raffle. So a person can buy a $1 raffle ticket, and that gives them a chance at winning one. And the WHRL calls this a mud kitchen. So that's the official name now. Instead of some kid's playground kitchen, it's a mud kitchen. I'm building two of them. What you see right here, I've already pre-cut some parts. You've seen me use my chop saw or table saw multiple times, and there's no magic in that. It's just cutting pieces to length. I'm using plans that I made. Well, they're really not plans. This is just a drawing with 3 views and some dimensions, and top view, front view, side view. Use it as a guide with all the dimensions. Is enough there so you can build it. And there's also a materials list here, and I'm going to make these available as well, and more on that later. Okay, so what you see in front of me, I'm making 2 of these, and the frame sets, there's going to be 2 ends to make up the frames. And so what I did is I built a jig on this plywood table, And I've got these in place so that when I put the parts in, they're going to be made in a uniform fashion such that everything fits together quite nicely, and it helps hold everything in place while I'm trying to screw everything together. It just makes sense. I had a bunch of scrap material, so I figured I'd make a simple jig. There's nothing fancy or anything you know, wild or fancy about this. It's pretty simple. So I'm going to get started building, and I'll tell you about what's going on with the drawings if you want to get a set just a little while. I'm using a combination of 2-inch exterior deck screws, and I'm using some Titebond III wood glue, which is waterproof glue. And what I've done is I have taken a Forstner bit, 3/8 inch Forstner bit, and I made a little pocket where the screws are going to go, and that way there I have a 3/8 inch dowel that'll fit perfectly after I put the screws in. I'll glue little dowel plugs in place. They'll be cut and sanded smooth, and you won't see the screws. So I'm just going to put a little bit of wood glue in there. Put this back in place. Okay, so I have one section made, and now I'm going to make another section exactly like this because I'm making two of them, and then I'll make two that are the opposite side. That way there I'll have two sets. Then I can go ahead and I can make the rest of the mud kitchen. Start making more assembly pieces here. So I built two of the same sides, where the long piece was over here, and now I'm going to make two pairs of ends where the long piece is on the other side. So I have a match set for each one for making the two different mud kitchens. So the jig is the same. I didn't have to change anything on the jig. I just reversed the vertical pieces. Short one over here now, long one over here. If you have a set of drawings and you look at them, you see what I'm talking about. So we'll just stick a little bit of glue on there, just like I did on the other one. Get it into position. And you take your time doing this because you want it just right. Have them both come out the same. The lower leg brace. Make sure that didn't come out of position. Another knot. I was running into knots. There we go. Okay. Just one more to go, one just like this one, and we can begin the rest of the assembly. I have two ends clamped in position. Once again, sort of a jig. Holds everything in alignment, makes life easier for me. And I'm putting one cross piece, this is according to the drawing, right here. Another one up near the top here. There'll be more as we go along, but these are the first two that'll help hold this into a basic framework. And I'll put on each end, I'll put a few screws. Again, those are going to be countersunk, and they'll be plugged with some 3/8 inch dowel and glue. Once I get a screw in at each end, then it'll pretty much hold itself in position. I don't have to worry about it shifting on me. Get my next one aligned. Okay, I've got the basic frame. I'm going to make another one just like this. I'll take the other two ends, put a couple more cross pieces on, and then I can continue with the assembly. So I have the second frame basically assembled, and now I want to put another piece here across the front, cross piece, and once that's secured I can start putting the top planks on. But I want to make sure everything lines up first. And if there's a little bit protruding here and there, if it's not perfectly even, I can sand that off later. But they're pretty close. Pretty darn close. So I'm going to clamp one end. That's pretty good. I think I'm just going to mark it, glue it, and screw it, call it good. And I can continue from there. Okay, I'll put the rest of these screws in off camera. While building the basic frame, you saw that I used glue in addition to screws. But if just putting these slats on top, I'm not going to use glue. These are going to move around a little bit, shrink and swell. They're out in the sun, there's more exposure. And as it wears out or kids damage it, they're playing on it, you might want to have to replace them. So I'm just going to I'm going to screw them in place and get them lined up. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pin it first to make sure that it doesn't go anywhere. And then I can go ahead and start drilling and screwing. Do that at each end. And maybe some along here, a couple. The rest will all be screws. And I'll do that off camera. It's going to be just like I did all the others. Once this forward deck is secured, I go ahead and put those in place. Right now I'm just kind of setting the position. Little thin strip, the last one is going to have to be ripped on a table saw. I got one that's a little bit long, but I'm not going to cut it down. I can just take a trim router or sander, I can take that edge off. And just to hold them until I can put the screws in, I'm just going to pin them. Then I can go back, I'll put in the screws, I'll do that off camera. And it's not going to end here. There's some bracing that goes underneath I'll be doing later. There'll be more pieces up here, and I have to do a cutout for the pan, the sink that goes in. I've got to put the faux burners in place and the dowels. So there's still a little bit more to go. My next step is to cut the hole for the little drop-in sink. This is just a stainless steel pan. This is similar to the one I used on the original one that I made. And so what I did is I measured the length and width of where the pan meets the little flange. I'm not using the flange has to overlap so that the pan can fit into place in the hole. And I do have that marked. I put a little bit of bracing underneath these slats here that make the countertop, and so that holds everything together. I'm going to take the spade bit in this drill, and I'm just going to bore some pilot holes in the corners, and that gives me a place where I can put this this jigsaw or saber saw into place, and I can cut out the hole for that sink. Perfect. Fits beautiful. Okay, at this point I'm going to get out my trim router, and I'm just going to round these edges off because I don't want to have sharp, splintery edges. In addition, with rounding over these edges with the router, I'll also come back and sand it nice and smooth, but the sanding I'm going to do later when I finally finish building the entire mud kitchen and I put in the dowels, and you know, and those are, the dowels are sawed off flush. I'm going to come back and I'm going to sand the whole entire thing, and so the sanding can be done here as well. Now, having that nice rounded edge, it's not going to cause anybody to get any splinters. And she drops right in. And it's nice having this type of a sink because, of course, there's no drain, and the kids play in it and they get in mud, sand, or whatever. This can be pulled out, it can be emptied and cleaned out very easily. And during the off season, this will be taken out when the mud kitchen is put away for the winter, put away somewhere inside. That works out well. I laid the mud kitchen on its side, well, on its back. And the reason why is because now I need to put on a backsplash. But because there's an opening in the middle and only boards on the sides, I have to have some kind of a support for those boards. So I'm just taking a couple of 2x4s. When I drew the plans, I made them 2x2s, but I don't feel like starting up my table saw right now and ripping this, so I have the material. I'm just going to use 2x4s. And I'm going to put them where they need to be. And I've got it marked according to the plans, 15 1/4 inches from the outer edge to the inner edge. And I'll make an adjustment or two as necessary. Get a tape measure, get everything lined up the way it needs to be. Anyway, I just got to get this lined up before I go further. Okay, I've got these pieces where I want them to be, and for now I'm just going to pin them so that they don't move around on me. I don't want them to shift. And now I'm going to cut some of the thinner boards that are going to go on here on each side. get those installed. Got a few of these pieces cut. I'm going to have to cut some more, but just so you get an idea of what's going on here. Backsplashes, I'm going to have to cut more, but sort of go like this. And I can now put my regular screws or fasteners in place. I'm almost finished with the construction of the mud kitchen. However, I still have to make some burners, or faux burners, and so I took a couple of pieces of the 5/4 decking material, cedar decking material, and I'm just going to take my biscuit joiner machine here, and I'll cut some slots for the biscuits, and then I'll join these together with some glue and some clamps, because it's going to take a while for this stuff to set up before I'm ready to cut the burners out. So I want to do this now, and I can set it aside, and then I can go back to work on the mud kitchen, because I still have to plug all the screw holes with dowels and glue, and I still have a lot of sanding to do and build a shelf and so forth. But so this will give me plenty of time for this to set up and dry, and then when I'm ready for it, I can just cut it out and put them on. Yeah, there wasn't much to do in that. And I have some, these are number 10 size biscuits that I happen to have. I'm using Titebond III. This is a brand new one. Yep. Titebond III waterproof glue for exterior use. I have an acid brush to help spread it. Get the on there. It's so hot out that the glue's really thin, thinner than it usually is. So I'll try to take the excess, put it here on the other side. I also made sure I put glue into the slots. And those biscuits will help absorb some of that glue, and they'll expand, they'll get a good tight fit. And this piece is about 20 inches long. I'm going to get 2 burners out of this one piece. And I'm going to get a damp rag and wipe off this excess, and I'm just going to let this sit until it sets up, and it's at the point where I can cut out the burners. So the faux burners, after I glued up that piece, I cut them out, and I cut in the little burner grills there with the CNC machine. Also the dials. And I'm just going to put a coat of paint on them. And I was going to use some ebony stain, but I found out I don't have any. So I did find a can of Rust-Oleum oil-based black paint. So that'll work. It's not what I wanted, but right now I'm in a time crunch. Well, now it's time to put in a few plugs. So, I'll just put a touch of glue here and there. Oops, way too much. Came out fast on me, I wasn't expecting it. That's alright. A little more there. A little dab will do ya. And I'm not going to film the entire thing. There's a whole lot of these recessed screws, and so I'm just going to go along and I'm going to stick some plugs in there. And I'll come back later and I'll cut off the excess and sand it smooth. And that's all there is to that. It's not a big deal. Nothing mysterious about it. And it's going to take me quite a while to get them all done. But hopefully I'll have them finished in time so that tomorrow morning I get everything all, get these all trimmed and sanded, and so it'll be ready for the photographs. The only thing I have left here the only thing I really have left to do, besides put in the faux burners and the dials, is to put a little shelf up there and add some hooks, and then I'll be finished. And of course the final sanding, going over everything. But I think it's going to work out pretty well. So. Now on this particular mud kitchen I'm going to add a little shelf. I didn't do that on the original that I made last year. Just simple, and I'm making it out of some white cedar scrap material that I had. And I'm just going to put these little braces, not that they need it, but it's just for aesthetic purposes. Something like that. So I think I'll just use a little glue, a couple of brads, do that one first. Yeah, that'll work nicely. Put another one on. That should do the trick. Now I just have to install it.